This is Heart Pocket Podcast number 360 for September 2nd, 2025.
Heart Pocket Podcast, seeking to align our hearts with God's heart, making our hearts more like the heart of Jesus.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Heart Pocket Podcast. I am here with a wonderful young lady. Introduce yourself.
My name is Brooke. I was on this podcast about a year ago, probably more than that at this point. And I am blind from birth. And I have been utilizing simply the story in several different contexts over the last year or so.
Okay, so we first met at NRB, National Religious Broadcasters.
We did.
And a mutual friend of ours actually brought you over and introduced you to me. And he kept telling me, you've got to meet this young gal, Brooke. You got to meet Brooke. And I'm thinking, who's Brooke? And I'm sure you got it on your side too, right?
That I did. Well, it was very interesting what happened to me. So it was a friend of ours from Mega Voice. Some of you have heard about the Mega Voice players, I'm sure. And I was working on getting a partnership going with Mega Voice and doing some things with their players with the ministry I was working with. And so he said, I'm going to send you some samples, but I'm not going to send you empty players. I'll put some things on them. And one of the things on one of the Pathway players was the God Story Project. And the next time we talked, I said, okay, you have to tell me about this series of Bible stories that you put on there. He goes, Bible? Oh,
God's Story.
The God Story Project from Creation to Eternity?
Yeah, it's actually God's Story from Creation to Eternity by the God Story Project. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. My apologies. That's exactly right.
We'll let it slide this once.
Okay. So he told me that, and I said, those are amazing. And he said, those are people you need to talk to. Those are people that can teach you a lot. And he said, Andrea is someone who I would really like you to meet if you're able to make it to NRB. She's someone that I believe could help you greatly with a lot of what you're doing, the work that you do with the blind specifically. And it would be really wonderful for you all to talk. And so he just was able to facilitate that. And he was absolutely right. He had schooled me about many things. I'd been the director of outreach for a ministry called Lutheran Braille Workers for a few months at that point. And I was still very much trying to figure out exactly what I was doing and the best ways in which I could help folks who were blind, help folks who were sighted. And so he schooled me a lot. And then he really got me involved with the Simply the Story group. It was first Andrea, and then it was Butch and several others. And that has blessed my life and helped me more than I ever could have anticipated.
Now, it was interesting, and I'm going to share this story with our listeners because it was a challenge for me when we first met, because I have not been in the blind community very long. You know, I just a little bit here and there. I'll meet people here and there. And so he introduces me to you, and somehow the conversation went to a Bible story because that was my understanding of why to be introduced. I don't know, maybe I misunderstood because I do that a lot.
I think you understood properly.
And so we finished that Bible story, but I couldn't shake the Bible story that God wanted me to do. Because I didn't do the first. The first one was just a random, probably the storm story.
Jars of oil.
Jars of oil, okay. But the Lord just kept really pushing me to do the Blind Bartimaeus story with you. And I don't know you that well at that point in time. I didn't know you that well. But I was starting to see your humor, your strength. I was seeing so much about you, but not enough. We hadn't been friends for more than about, 20 minutes?
If that, maybe 15.
So I remember kind of going, I'm not trying to offend you, but I feel like God wants me to do this story. I was just giving every kind of
qualification.
What's that?
Qualification, which is unusual for you. You usually don't qualify much that you say, but in this case, you were really going over the top to do so.
I was backpedaling to make sure that, you knew this wasn't to be offensive. So we did the Blind Bartimaeus story, and what happened?
Well, what happened was that you asked me, I don't remember exactly what, but what might we learn from basically the fact that Jesus simply said, go your way, your faith has made you well. There was
Wait. No, this is great. Let's do the story together.
Okay,
Give some of our listeners a little bit of insight here. Okay, so basically the story goes like this. Jesus has gone through Jericho, and as he's leaving Jericho, there's a great crowd with him. And sitting on the side of the road was a blind beggar, Bartimaeus, or son of Timaeus, which is what bar means, son of. And he hears that Jesus of Nazareth is coming, so he cries out, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the people said to him to basically be quiet. So he cries out even louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. And that's when Jesus stopped and called for the blind man. And so the people go to him and say, be of good cheer, get up, he calls for you. So the blind man takes off his coat, he gets up, and he goes to Jesus. And Jesus asks him, what do you want me to do for you? And he says, Lord, that I could have my sight. And Jesus said, go your way, your faith has made you whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the way. How good was I? Did I get it?
I think you got it pretty good.
Okay, because I wasn't reading, I just simply, I've done the story a few times. Okay, so now let's focus in on some specific spots there. Do you remember how the conversation went?
It did. So you specifically asked what we might learn about Jesus from the fact that he asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Mm-hmm. And the answer that I gave was he didn't assume that it was his sight he wanted, because this guy was crying out for mercy. So he did not assume it was sight this guy sought.
That he wanted? Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, he didn't, did he? But, it's interesting. To me, that's like a crazy question to ask. When somebody's blind, they need help to find their way. And you and I have worked together now over the last year, and I know that you're really good, but I still have to help you in new spots. You're going to take a right here, you're going to go this way. And you've got your stick, right?
That's right. I've always got a cane with me.
But you still, if it's a new area, there's still little pitfalls to the right, to the left, a little shifting here, a little shifting there, right?
That's right.
So here's this blind man going to Jesus, finding his way to Jesus, probably with the help of the people.
Throws his coat aside. It's like, good luck ever finding that again. If he doesn't heal you, if somebody doesn't take it, you could still have a really hard time finding it. And oh, by the way, these people aren't very helpful. So somebody very well might take it.
So here you've got this blind man begging on the side of the road. So what do we learn about him right from the beginning?
He is out of options.
He's begging.
He's begging. He doesn't really have any other options at this time.
Exactly. He's dependent on who?
He's really dependent on these people going by.
No kidding. So, and he cries out, he hears Jesus of Nazareth is coming, and he cries out, Son of David, have mercy on me, which you've pointed out, that's what he's asking for. Mm-hmm. Where is he hearing this Jesus of Nazareth? How is he hearing this? From who?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it tells me because he didn't say Jesus of Nazareth, have mercy on me. He said Son of David. And so the thing about blind people, and you all have noticed this with me, because when I've led stories and things like that, I can often tell that somebody's about to speak when even someone sitting next to them can't, just because they'll take an intake of breath or something like that. Blind people have really high, or at least a lot of us do, have really, really high situational awareness. So
you've been listening to Heart Pocket Podcast. Interviews, Bible stories, in-depth discussions, stories of impact from around the world.
Bartimaeus has clearly been hearing about Jesus for a while. Now, blind people tend to know each other these days, even if we've never met. I don't know if that was true back then. It very well may have been that they kind of encountered each other, word got around. But he's heard from somebody what this guy has been doing, maybe heard speculation about who he is, but he has come to some conclusion of his own about who this guy is.
He has. You're right. So the crowd is calling him Jesus of Jesus of Nazareth. And this blind guy's heard something, connects the dots, and says, Son of David.
That's right.
Which means Messiah.
This blind guy sees exactly who Jesus is. And these really unhelpful people that are telling him to really stop crying out. I mean, these aren't people you would want to hire for your customer service or human resource department. They are, they can see Jesus right in front of them, but they don't know who he is. They're thinking of him as a Nazarene, as a Nazarene healer. Bartimaeus is crying, Son of David, and saying that he is one who may bestow mercy.
Yeah, and the people are, I love how you describe them, so helpful in customer service that the first time he cries out, they tell him to be quiet. And then he cries out even louder. So this guy who's dependent upon the crowd for his income, because he's a beggar, and dependent upon the crowd to get to and from whoever's taking him to and from, and he cries out even louder. Well, that's a great way to annoy your customer service.
It is. It is. If these are people you want help from, or these are people that you hope will be in some way helpful or charitable, well, you're really irritating them now because you're doing contrary to what they just asked you to please stop. And he just goes louder. So he apparently is not afraid of whatever is about to happen. Because, and I have to say, this is a big crowd. That takes a lot of courage to knowingly annoy a crowd, whether you're expecting to perhaps get some charity from them or not. I don't like big crowds, but particularly if you have a crowd that is somewhat hostile or something like that, trying to work through any crowd is difficult. Being stuck in a crowd like that, when people are kind of out of control, I'm sorry, that's scary.
That is very scary. I agree with you. And so finally, that's when Jesus stops, calls for him, and the people go and say to him, be of good cheer, he calls for you, get up, and he takes off his coat and he goes to Jesus. And just that alone is pretty amazing, but we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit, and Jesus asks this ridiculous question, what do you want me to do for you, which is where we started kind of in the beginning. And he says, Lord, that I can have my sight. And I just remember we went through that story quite a bit.
We did.
And I really challenged you on something. Did Jesus know he was blind?
Certainly seemed that way, based on the way that it was stated. He's crying out, these people are telling him to stop, and he tells these people to call for him. So he doesn't say, hey, you get over here. And that tells me that he knows pretty well, because we've even seen some situations like it at this training where someone says something to someone, and sometimes I think they're talking to me, and I'll say, oh, yeah, and they say, oh, sorry, I wasn't talking to you. So that is not an uncommon situation to deal with in blind circles, and I think Jesus is aware of that, so he has the people that are closer to him call him. And clearly he's needing, it doesn't say if they're helping him to get there or not, but I think it'd be pretty obvious by how he was getting there. I do not think he's walking a straight line there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So he makes the blind man call out twice. He doesn't go to the blind man, he calls for him. This is Jesus. And then when the blind man is standing in front of Jesus, he asks him a question that most people would be like, huh? Does Jesus not realize this man is blind? And it made me wonder, who is Jesus really talking to or reaching out to in this story?
Yeah, he reaches out to Bartimaeus because he reaches out to him. He has him come to him. But you'll notice that this is one of those healings where he doesn't do anything. He doesn't touch him. He just says, I want my sight. Okay, your faith has made you, go your way. Your faith has made you whole. Your faith has restored you. There are a few different ways of saying it. And what we see there is that the people needed a lot of help. I don't know if they realized.
How do you see that in the story?
because they were following him. They were clearly looking for something.
They were walking with him. There was a great crowd with him.
But what were they looking for? Because they weren't saying this is the Son of David coming. They were saying this is Jesus the Nazarene. So whatever it was they were seeking, it appears they did not make the same confession Bartimaeus made. They were not seeking the same thing that he was. And so that blind man saw who Jesus was, but those sighted people, who were quite smug in their sight, in the sense that they could say, hey, be quiet, he doesn't need some blind dude yelling at him to have mercy. But it was their blindness that really was in much more need of healing, and would take a lot more to heal also. This is on the road to Jerusalem. And so it wasn't the physical blindness of the blind man that was all that important. They could see that and see, oh, wow. And here comes Bartimaeus, and he immediately, his way becomes Jesus's way. He follows him. But the people beheld that happening and still didn't see, didn't understand.
They didn't have mercy when he cried out for mercy. But when Jesus called for him, the people had to go get him.
That's right.
And these are the same people that didn't see that this is the Son of David.
Yeah.
And then who's around him when Jesus asks the question and the blind man says, Lord, that I could have my sight. The people are hearing all of this. They're seeing all of this. They're being involved in all of this.
That's right.
And I really like what you said. Bartimaeus saw who Jesus is. The people did not.
Yes.
So Jesus is using a blind man to reach the people.
Yes, he is.
We had a discussion like this at the conference.
We did.
How did it impact you?
Well, something I failed to mention earlier is that I, at the time of this recording, just graduated about a month before this with my doctorate of ministry. It was about a month and a half ago, and this is June at this time. I had a paper due, and it had to do with dealing with a specific passage, and I was going to do one thing, and it completely changed my mind. I think I was going to do John 9, because I do work in ministry to visually impaired individuals, and I was trying to think about, okay, what can I do in this paper that'll really capture that? Well, I ended up doing it on this story, and I ended up using a lot of what was brought up in this conversation. You ended up in a lot of my footnotes, and
I usually end up under people's feet, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, you ended up in my either footnotes, endnotes, whatever it was. It was this annotated thing, and I cited that. I went back and looked at the STS handbook and was citing that. Kind of used this method. This was sort of like an annotated sermon we were all writing for this class. It was on storytelling in the gospel. And so they wanted us to demonstrate that we could really do that and utilize story. Well, I did utilize a lot of stories throughout that sermon from things in my life and in other situations, but I also utilized the STS method, in which each section of the story went over again. There was a lot of repetition. I didn't have things like a volunteer or lead through in that paper, but I used many aspects of that method. And I didn't really know the wise counselor questions at that point, but I utilized what I could. And
Because you hadn't been trained yet.
Exactly. But I just said, okay, I have to use this because this has completely turned my mind upside down. And I sent you an email, and I said, I am so grateful to have met you, and I need to thank you, because this really changed not only a paper that I wrote, but some things that I realized about my approach to blind ministry. How do I want to handle this? How do I want to help folks who are blind understand our calling? Because I do see blindness as a calling. People can agree with that or not. But it's much better to live into that, I think, as a believer, as opposed to being angry about it. And I've run into many who are angry about their blindness, or maybe they were.
Tune in next week for another episode of Heart Pocket Podcast, and feel free to subscribe on iTunes. For those who wish to have more information about Simply the Story trainings, please feel free to contact the office at info@simplythestory.org or call us at 951-658-1619. You can also visit our website at simplythestory.org. And now you can watch God's story in hundreds of languages just from our simplythestory.org website.
You've been listening to Heart Pocket Podcast, hiding God's Word in our heart pockets, changing the world one heart at a time.
When it sings of glory, I sing the new soul. Will be the old story that I have loved so long.